Setting boundaries through endless communication is the biggest lie the modern self-help industry ever sold you. You are told that to protect your peace, you must speak up. You are told you must send that carefully crafted paragraph to a toxic friend to explain why you are stepping back. You are told to sit down and explain to people exactly how they hurt you, so they can finally respect your limits. But here is the brutal truth. Explaining your boundaries to someone who is committed to misunderstanding you is not healthy communication. It is emotional self-sabotage. Welcome to Stoic Chisel. If you are tired of exhausting yourself for people who refuse to listen, subscribe to the channel right now so we can rebuild your inner fortress together. Think about how much energy you have wasted trying to make other people understand your perspective. You agonize over finding the perfect words to say. You draft long, emotionally draining text messages in your notes app before sending them. You rehearse imaginary arguments in the shower, preparing for every possible response. You genuinely believe that if you just explain your feelings clearly enough, the other person will finally get it. You hope they will apologize, realize their mistakes, and change their behavior. But they never do. The ancient Stoics knew a fundamental truth about human nature that modern culture has conveniently forgotten. True peace is never a negotiated treaty with the outside world. It is an absolute dictatorship of your own mind. When you beg someone to respect your boundaries, you are doing the exact opposite of protecting yourself. You are handing them the keys to your emotional state. You are asking them for permission to feel at peace. Modern society glorifies the act of speaking your truth. It equates silence with weakness and verbal boundary setting with true empowerment. We are encouraged to communicate our needs relentlessly, to make sure everyone around us knows exactly where we stand. But look closely at the results. People have never communicated more about their boundaries, yet they have never been more anxious, drained, and mentally crowded. This happens because you cannot reason someone out of a behavior they did not use reason to get into. Every time you over-explain why you are walking away, you are leaving a door cracked open. You invite negotiation, gaslighting, and another exhausting cycle of unnecessary drama. You want to correct the record, to prove you are not the villain in their story. But in doing so, you think you are protecting your energy, when you are actually bleeding it out into a bottomless void. You are spending your most valuable currency, your attention, on people who do not deserve a single cent of it. Peace does not require a conversation. It does not require an apology, a mutual understanding, or a perfectly worded email. Real boundaries are completely silent. They are not something you discuss. They are something you enforce through strict action and absolute absence. Yet, the urge to explain ourselves is incredibly difficult to resist. Even when we know a conversation will go nowhere, we still feel a burning need to have the last word or make our stance known. If communicating our boundaries is actually destroying our peace, why do we keep doing it? What is the hidden psychological virus inside us that makes us draft those long, desperate messages in the middle of the night? The psychological virus that forces you to over-explain your boundaries has a name. It is your ego. You might think of the ego as arrogance or grandiosity, but that is only one of its masks. Its most dangerous disguise is the victim who desperately needs to be understood. When you sit down to write that long, emotional paragraph to someone who has crossed the line, you tell yourself you are being mature. You tell yourself you are setting a healthy limit. But deep down, if you are brutally honest with yourself, that is not what is happening at all. You are secretly hoping for a specific reaction. You want them to read your words and suddenly feel a heavy wave of guilt. You want them to apologize. You want them to finally look at you and say that you were right all along and that they were wrong. You are not setting a boundary. You are seeking validation. Think about the last time you dealt with a passive-aggressive colleague or a toxic manager who constantly undermined your work. They send an email that subtly attacks your competence, purposely copying the rest of the team. Your heart rate instantly spikes. Your face gets hot. You immediately drop everything you are doing to draft a response. You spend the next 45 minutes typing, deleting, and rewriting. You try to strike the perfect balance between professional and assertive. You want to lay out the facts, defend your character, and establish that you will not be spoken to in this manner. You hit send, and then the real torture begins. You stare at the screen. You refresh your inbox every 10 seconds. You wait for their reply, your entire emotional state held hostage by a person you do not even respect. This is not power. This is psychological slavery. You have taken the keys to your inner peace and handed them directly to the person who just attacked you. The same pattern happens in our personal lives, especially within the twisted dynamics of family group chats. You decide you need space from a relative who constantly drains your energy and crosses your lines. Instead of simply taking the space, you feel this overwhelming, suffocating obligation to explain why you are taking it. You send a massive text message detailing years of grievances. You explain exactly how their actions made you feel. You lay out the terms of your new boundary, expecting them to finally see the light. And what happens next? They do not read it with empathy. They read it as an invitation to war. They twist your words, play the victim, take screenshots to send to other relatives, and suddenly you find yourself in a 3-day, agonizing argument over a boundary that was supposed to bring you peace. You end up more exhausted, more anxious, and more depleted than if you had simply said nothing at all. Why do we do this? Because the modern self-help movement has convinced us that closure is something other people must give us. We have been brainwashed into believing that our reality is only valid if the person hurting us acknowledges it. The Stoics understood the fatal flaw in this kind of thinking. They knew that expecting a rational, empathetic response from an irrational, self-centered person is a form of madness. When you demand that a toxic person understands your point of view, you are asking a blind person to describe a painting. They cannot see it. They do not want to see it. Their entire identity is built on not seeing it. By trying to force them to understand, you are acting out of a deep insecurity. You are proving that your peace of mind still depends entirely on their approval. If you were truly secure in your decision to walk away, you would not need them to agree with your reasons. You would not need their signature on your Declaration of Independence. You would just leave. But the ego hates the idea of walking away misunderstood. The ego cannot stand the thought of the other person telling a different version of the story where you are the bad guy. So, you stay in the arena. You keep talking, keep explaining, keep trying to manage their perception of you. And as long as you are trying to manage their perception, they own you. Every notification on your phone becomes a shock to your nervous system. Every delayed reply becomes a source of panic. You are entirely at the mercy of their unpredictable, chaotic behavior. This is the ultimate trap of the modern communication myth. It convinces you that you are taking control of your life, when in reality, you are just tying yourself closer to the source of your misery. You are using up your limited emotional bandwidth to educate people who are committed to staying ignorant. You are sacrificing your actual peace for the temporary, eerie illusion of being right. And the worst part is, they know this. Toxic people thrive on your explanations. Your long paragraphs prove to them that they still have power over you. Your anger, your sadness, your desperate attempts to make them understand, these are all trophies to them. It tells them that they are still relevant, that they still matter, that they still occupy the center stage in your mind. So, if explaining your boundaries only feeds the ego and gives your power away, how do you actually protect yourself? How do you sever the cord completely without getting dragged back into the drama? There is a mechanism so powerful and so brutal that it instantly neutralizes anyone who tries to disturb your peace. It is a weapon that requires 0 words, yet it speaks louder than any argument you could ever construct. But how exactly do you deploy this ancient strategy when the modern world is actively provoking you to react every single day? The answer to this psychological virus is not a better argument. The answer is a complete and total withdrawal of your energy. It is the absolute mastery of ruthless silence. In the modern world, we are completely terrified of silence. We have been conditioned from a very young age to believe that if we do not respond, we automatically lose. We think that whoever speaks the loudest, or whoever manages to secure the last word, is the one who wins the interaction. But in the realm of emotional warfare, the person who cares the least holds all the power. When you finally come to the brutal realization that their opinion of you is completely worthless, you instantly stop trying to change it. You stop acting like a frantic lawyer desperately defending a case in a courtroom that does not even exist. You do not announce your departure. You do not send a final, dramatic farewell message. You simply become an emotional ghost. Let me paint a very real picture for you. Imagine you are sitting in a corporate conference room. The fluorescent lights are humming, the coffee is stale, and the tension is high. A toxic coworker decides this is the perfect moment to throw you under the bus for a project delay that was entirely their own fault. They look across the table and make a slick, passive-aggressive comment designed specifically to bait you. Every single instinct in your modern, socially conditioned brain screams at you to defend yourself immediately. Your heart rate spikes, your face flushes, and you want to open your laptop, pull up the email receipts, and prove to the entire room that you are innocent. You want to expose their incompetence for everyone to see. But that is exactly what they want you to do. They want you flustered, angry, emotional, and defensive. Because the moment you start aggressively defending yourself, you validate their attack, and you look like the one losing control. Now, imagine a completely different scenario. They make the passive-aggressive comment. You do not sigh loudly. You do not roll your eyes or shake your head. You do not frantically search for proof of your innocence. You simply turn your head and look at them. You maintain steady, unbroken, cold eye contact, and you say absolutely nothing. You let the silence hang in the air like a heavy, suffocating blanket. You force them and everyone else in that room to sit in the awkward, heavy consequences of their unprofessional behavior. You do not rescue them from the uncomfortable quiet by laughing it off or changing the subject. In that very moment, you are practicing the ultimate discipline of the ancient philosophers. You are observing a chaotic performance without buying a ticket to the show. This is what setting a true boundary actually looks like in the real world. It does not require a rehearsed speech about your feelings. It requires the supreme discipline to withhold your participation. Toxic narcissists and emotional vampires cannot survive in a vacuum. They survive strictly on your reactions. Your anger is oxygen to them. Your frustration is their daily fuel. Your long, explanatory emails proving why they are wrong are like a gourmet meal to their starving egos. But when you give them pure, unadulterated silence, you starve them out completely. You force them to sit entirely alone with their own toxicity. This harsh reality applies perfectly to your digital life as well. Think about the toxic ex, or the manipulative family member, who sends you a massive, guilt-tripping text message late on a Friday night. They know exactly which historical buttons to push to make your blood boil. They accuse you of things you never did. They twist reality and rewrite history to make themselves the permanent victim. Instinctively, your thumbs begin hovering over the glass screen of your phone. You are ready to write a 10-page novel to destroy their argument point by point. Put the phone face down on the table. Walk away and go make yourself a cup of coffee. Leaving someone on read is not a petty, immature game. When used correctly, it is a profound and unshakable declaration of your own independence. It sends a message that no combination of words could ever convey. It says, your chaos no longer has an access badge to my reality. It says, I do not negotiate with emotional terrorists. We are living in an era where everyone uses weaponized therapy speak to manipulate each other. People use words like gaslighting, toxic, and boundaries to force you into endless, exhausting conversations about their feelings. They demand that you sit down and process their emotions for them. But you have to understand that you do not need anyone's cooperation, understanding, or permission to establish a boundary. A boundary is never a request you make to another human being. A boundary is a strict command you give to yourself. It is simply the definitive line where your participation permanently ends. If someone disrespects you, you do not need to explain the philosophical importance of respect to them. You simply remove your presence from their radius. You stop answering the calls. You stop engaging in the manufactured family drama. You stop trying to be the bigger person in a room full of incredibly small minds. You ruthlessly withdraw your attention, which is the most valuable and finite currency you will ever possess. You must accept the hard truth that not everyone deserves a version of you that is willing to explain things. Some people only deserve your complete and utter absence. This transition in mindset will feel deeply uncomfortable at first. Your ego will scream at you in the middle of the night to go back and get the last word. It will try to convince you that by staying silent, you are letting them get away with disrespecting you. Your ego will tell you that they are going to walk away thinking they won the argument. Let them think they won. Let them be completely wrong about you. Let them spin whatever delusional narrative they need to tell their friends to help them sleep at night. Their delusion is not your responsibility to cure. When you finally stop trying to control how other people perceive you, a massive, crushing weight is lifted off your shoulders. You instantly reclaim all the physical and mental energy you used to waste on drafting those desperate paragraphs. You take back the countless hours you spent agonizing over their delayed replies. You realize that you, and you alone, are the sole architect of your peace. You stop being a frantic, exhausted participant in their drama, and you become a calm, clinical observer of human behavior. You watch them try to provoke you, and instead of anger, you feel nothing but a quiet detachment. You see them for what they really are, lost, chaotic, and desperately trying to drag you into the storm they created, and you simply choose to stay on dry land. This is the ruthless silence that actually protects your peace. It is an impenetrable fortress built not of desperate words, but of cold, calculated discipline. But let us be completely honest with each other for for a moment. This philosophy sounds incredibly empowering when you are sitting alone in your room, listening to a video. It makes perfect, logical sense in theory. But what happens when the provocation is entirely public? What happens when a colleague tries to ruin your reputation openly, or when the crushing pressure of social media demands that you issue a response? How do you maintain this ghost protocol when the whole world is watching, judging, and waiting for you to break your silence? When the provocation is entirely public, the rules of the game feel terrifyingly different. It is one thing to ignore a manipulative text message from an ex late at night when nobody else is watching. It is a completely different beast when the attack happens on a public stage. Society has drilled a very specific, highly destructive lie into our heads. We are told that silence implies guilt. We are conditioned to believe that if we do not immediately issue a statement, clear our name, or fight back, the world will accept the lie as the truth. This is the ultimate test of your ego. Let us look at the modern digital colosseum. Imagine you are part of a massive group project, or perhaps a high-stakes corporate team. Things go wrong, a critical deadline is missed, or a massive financial error is made. And suddenly, a toxic colleague decides to shift the blame entirely onto you. But they do not do it in a private email. They do it in the main company Slack channel. Or worse, they throw a subtle, passive-aggressive jab at you on LinkedIn. Hundreds of eyes are suddenly on you. Your peers, your managers, maybe even your clients are watching the drama unfold in real time. The digital crowd is holding its breath, waiting for your rebuttal. The panic sets in instantly. Your chest tightens, your breathing gets shallow, and a massive wave of adrenaline floods your system. Your ego screams that your reputation is being dismantled brick by brick. It tells you that you must craft the perfect, publicly devastating response to expose their lie. You want to bring the digital receipts. You want to humiliate them in front of the exact same audience they tried to use against you. But the moment you step into that public mud pit, you have already lost. Why? Why? Because the digital crowd does not actually care about the truth. The crowd only cares about the entertainment of the conflict. When you engage in a public war of words, you validate the premise of the attack. You lower yourself to the exact same frequency as the person who is trying to destroy you. You become just another chaotic voice screaming in a crowded room. Here is the brutal Stoic reality about your public reputation. Your reputation is not what people think of you. Your reputation is your actual, undeniable character. Opinions are incredibly cheap, easily manipulated, and completely out of your control. People will misunderstand you. People will project their own deep insecurities onto your actions. People will absolutely believe lies about you if those lies conveniently fit their preferred narrative. If you tie your emotional stability to correcting every false assumption people make about you, you will spend your entire life running on a psychological hamster wheel. You will become a permanent prisoner to the court of public opinion. Executing the ghost protocol in public requires an iron stomach. It means watching someone paint you as the villain and actively choosing not to pick up a brush to paint over it. When the public attack comes, you do not retaliate. You do not post a cryptic, passive-aggressive status update to your stories. You do not go on a desperate smear campaign behind the scenes to win people over to your side. If it is a professional setting requiring a factual correction, you provide the raw data without a single drop of emotion, and then you completely disengage. But in most social situations, you offer absolutely nothing. You let the lie hang in the air. You let the rumor mill spin. You let people whisper. because a fire cannot sustain itself without oxygen. Your emotional reaction, your defensiveness, and your desperation to be understood are the oxygen. When you remove yourself completely, the toxic person is left shadowboxing in an empty room. They look unstable. They look obsessed. And eventually, the crowd moves on to the next piece of cheap entertainment. This discipline translates every corner of your modern social life. Think about the quiet anxiety of social media, the crushing fear of missing out that dictates how we present ourselves to the world. You see a group of friends hanging out without you. You see a former partner posting pictures, looking impossibly happy with someone new. The modern instinct is to react immediately, to post a better picture, to check in at a more expensive restaurant, to subtly prove to the timeline line that your life is just as exciting, just as valuable, and just as fulfilling. We use our digital presence to constantly explain our worth to people who are too busy worrying about their own worth to even notice us. What happens when you stop participating in this invisible, exhausting competition? What happens when you stop offering explanations, both verbal and digital, about who you are and what you are doing? People will start to wonder about you. But more importantly, you will stop wondering about them. You reclaim an unimaginable amount of mental real estate. The energy you previously burned trying to manage your public image can now be redirected into building actual, tangible competence in the real world. You stop playing a supporting character in everyone else's movie and finally become the director of your own life. This is the true application of ancient philosophy in the 21st century. It is not about wearing a toga or quoting dead emperors to sound smart. It is about looking at the chaotic, noisy, desperately insecure modern world and having the sheer audacity to hit the mute button. It is about letting people be incredibly, spectacularly wrong about you and sleeping perfectly fine that night anyway. But this level of cold detachment brings a new, unexpected challenge. When you stop reacting to the external world eventually realizes it can no longer reach you. The provocations stop. The drama fades away. The toxic people realize you are a brick wall, and they move on to easier targets. The outside noise finally goes quiet, and that is exactly when the most terrifying confrontation of your life begins. Because when the world goes silent, you are finally forced to listen to the noise inside your own head. How do you build a fortress so strong that even your own internal chaos cannot breach the walls? When the external noise finally fades, you are left with the most intimidating silence of all. You are left completely alone with your own mind. This is where the true test of Stoic philosophy actually begins, because ignoring a toxic coworker, deleting a desperate text message, or walking away from a manipulative family member is only half the battle. The real war is always internal. If you sit in silence on the outside, but spend hours replaying the argument inside your head, you have not actually set a boundary. You have just moved the battlefield from the physical world into your own imagination. The toxic person is still occupying your mental real estate, and they are living there completely rent-free. You are still desperately seeking closure, just in a court of law that only exists in your own brain. True inner sovereignty means establishing that ghost protocol not just with your spoken words, but with your private thoughts. It is the profound realization that your peace of mind is not a fragile glass vase that needs to be hidden away from the world. It is a fortress of solid stone. You build this fortress by accepting one absolute, unbreakable truth. You cannot control what they say, you cannot control what they think, and you cannot control the lies they tell about you. But you possess total, dictatorial power over whether any of it actually matters. When a chaotic person tries to provoke you, they are essentially handing you a heavy, burning coal. The modern self-help industry tells you to hold that coal in your bare hands and explain to them exactly why it burns. The ancient Stoic simply refuses to open their hand. You do not have to accept the gifts of anxiety, anger, or guilt that other people try to force upon you. You can just let those gifts drop to the floor, unacknowledged and entirely powerless. Tomorrow, you will face another test. Someone will cross a line at work. A relative will make a passive-aggressive comment at dinner. Someone on the internet will misunderstand your intentions on purpose. When that moment comes, I want you to feel the adrenaline rise in your chest. I want you to recognize that desperate, burning urge to speak, to defend, to carefully explain your boundaries. Observe that urge closely, and then watch it die entirely in the cold silence of your absolute restraint. Let them be wrong. Let them be angry. Let them fight an exhausting war with themselves while you quietly walk away and build a life of undeniable competence. That is not just protecting your peace. That is becoming completely untouchable. Now, I have a question for you, and I want you to be brutally honest down in the comments. Is walking away in pure silence always the ultimate sign of mental strength? Or are there specific situations where refusing to explain yourself is actually just a cowardly way to avoid accountability? Pick a side. Tell me if silence is a weapon of the strong or a shield for the weak, and defend your position in the comments below. If this message woke you up today, do not just scroll away and forget it. Hit the subscribe button right now to join Stoic Chisel and let us